어떤 마음을 통로해더라. 아니
그래서
선비치 치당양 치마 네 벌써 딱는데 노동시 뜻이 못되는 마음으로 망군도 받아 등와 담아도 일무대 왔다 왔다 님 동어서 네버도 왔다 왔다 잠깐이신 선바세진도 선바 선비치 어떤 마 그게 니와 남친님이 받다 로즈마
그래서
니와 남친님이 기와서
지금만 송주디 레마 지와담 셔바 디바드 송인스 벌레
또 말도만 로트나서 뭐 인도 모네 선바 선비 치세야지고 어떤 마
야야 that's all good morning, thank you for coming. Let's get started. Okay. Today, so I'm going to start with the third the topic number 3, which is on your translation page 29, and hopefully we can cover the third topic and then all the way and go to the uncertainty of the time of the death, and then move to the teachings of the karma and such as like the certainty of action and their fruits, and then multiplying the nature of action, and then so not having to face the consequences of action you have not done, and finally once committed, action do not fade away. So hopefully we can do this much. But let's get started on with the topic number 3. Thirdly, the way to think about the certainty of death and the rarity of being able to practice the doctrine in this life is as follows. The sutra on entering into the womb says, half of our lives are spent asleep. Until we are 10, we are children, and after 20, we grow old. Then there are hundreds of other obstructions, miseries, lamentation, suffering, depression, even quarreling, and various physical ailments which limit our opportunity to practice. Geshe Chagawa said, out of 60 years, if you take away the time spent on livelihood and sickness, there is barely 5 years directed towards the doctrine. Birth story says, alas, the world is filled with disturbing emotions, an unreliable and unpleasant place to live. The glory of this water lily will soon become but a memory. Such is the fate of all beings. It is surprising that people still do not feel afraid, even though all roads are blocked by the Lord of Death. They are thoughtlessly lost in enjoyment. The destructive enemies, disease, old age, and death are powerful and unavoidable. When they are certainly hidden for danger in future lives, how can the wise enjoy any happiness? The letter to King Kanika says, the Lord of Death is merciless. He kills a skillful man for no purpose. When death is so fast approaching, what wise man can live at ease? Eventually, the invincible warrior will shoot his unbearable arrows. Before the inevitable occurs, it is in our interest to be prepared. 听这个了。
노소 들 다니 너너다 그거 되고도 다 너로 니셔나 소소런 게 뭐지나 봐 상도시잖아 다로 로지 탐바 로 자이디 좀 로니시 탐바 얼때 공탄 보시는 진짜 진짜 니시 손 상도야가 영어진의 그 상도지가 딱 맞다 로니시 탐바송 또 로니시는 집집 발때다 지기지기스 니시 손다 지기도 지기도 지기 탐바송 로지 탐바송 근데 다 로지는 야다 다좀 종마송 로니시 탐바송네 로지 탐바송다 달로 뭐지 서비 남들이 인증하고 미머지게 노동로 되는지 다 정도 거스 그 정도구나 딱 끼는 거 로머지 로지 탐바이 송리도 랑 송라 나파 상로 당나 소소고 상보 섬 정보고 쇼라 치쇼고 지 샤워 정보고 쇼라 뭐 로지치는 로 같이 당샤 파 섬당나 알이 가버 로마가 배 당요 말지 당 투요 말다 이제 안에 가서 뭐 미머지게 뭐 좋아 건정만 전진데 다 지금 산주단지 메와치네 건정만 되리지 정도로 요지 얘는 때 정도로 요때 신일이 되는데 로요래 남 치워서 돼 그럼 니치도 용 거래 때다 아주 설마양 좀 삼바이나 가르 판도 요르잖아 저도 용료 땡기도 정말 용도 삼바이나 다때도 용을 치나라 그 대정을 직바용 거 말이지 아니 저도 아주 니 같은 그 라브르니 셰비 처음에 딱 보고 비 처음에 직세 처음에 용도 아주 직대비 지금 막 해송나 되게 노르롱주도 년년도 자동 카드로 다때 뺏겨 섬교니 자때 정말 뒤따데 직바데 말했어. 니 저와 직장 저와라 직장 장고 연기도 범진이 저와 직장 끼고 왔다 가서 다저 토마벤 되게 리드 랑아서 리드야 기가 나체가 랑싱 당니 제지게 내가 이당나 바탐진 디가라 등게적이 오래 되다 늘리 타고 온데 내 지스런 와 내가 지금 늘리 타고 온데 늘리 타와라 안에 체델라 가지고 지금 뭐게 조금 스톰 나서 봤는데 기와시만은 하미 리토고 하미 리토 받좀 조금만 될라 때는 못는데 겨워지네 코라들이 타고 온데 타와 타고 온데 코라도 민중국 상바질라게 조뜻 지고 코라 처음 딱시 부위 무일로도 그거 지금 무일 때들다 민중국 상바질라게 제대로지 체득은 죽던 그때 죽게 되게 제대로 말해야지 어떻게 자다 니 노동들이시나 어떻게 그때 자다 가지고 초항의 지인자 초용용의 지인요 아주 참 예위군의 양지용 선나 점바이다 당원이다 근데 지금 총주 그다 조주신문 나서고 nom박기니 이면은 갖다 쳐올 좀 조주신문 어떻게 nom되고 로진이 측배 요거 지금 누가 님전도 봐 요면 버 첸도 당도 구기셔 nom박기니 이면은 갖다 쳐올 좀 이제네 님동 천세도 기초까지 라진 로도 와 로제 아니 때 님동까지 치소까지 님전 니마 이마던 산지에 나와던 로지들이 정도로 되잖아. 이 조주는 아주 미체도 정도로 되자. 농비 장지원하다 그러려는 동네다 빼나. 용고를 농비 장지 매송하다 그 종에 체차도 정도다 리드 저땅고 사진지를 때니 파다 지금도고요. 진짜다. 사진 때자 농비 장지 매 기면은 덕다 처음 번졌다. 추왕이 지르 와서 뭐 체크하고 그러는 그 농비 장이 요 말 뒤쪽 파트도 정도로 그러는데 셔도 그래서 럽시지다. 너는 만난 데인데 예식이 타고 소치바에서 너니 집에 용어지. 나 치유지나 같이 용거를 나 이마식 소소 야살 홍보를 가서 총도다 소소지. 년년도 저 참지 다 거르지는데 그러지. 뒤치나 소소가 다 속체 소라도 소소로 이치고 용어도 제스 용고 말다. 어때 상모당한테 양지 상모당은 미 남기때 상모당 선마듯이 암도즈로 됐지 용도라. 어떤 게 뒤치나다 신지폰이 선바는 예치십은 시집에 뒤소는 시 대한다고 막된도 단 누가서거든 아니 신기 보니까 천덕과 신용이다 저와 예진 포라 바병을 수다 만담을 녹은 게 막바 시그레즈 디니모다 다 소소 요든 년되게 팽그 말에 노르동 쪽에 팽그 말에 천년 쪽에 팽그 말에 강게 팽그 말이지 진짜 손지 대강 팽그레즈나 세대나 소소 예심 한동지 멜라지 판스미 요고지 샤와 정보지 중나 디 제우도 소소 팽그 냠데 리던 좀 맞도 소소 냠데 시비츠는 로고 얘네들이 마치 또 얘네 덕게 막된 도지 뒤 싸움 때문에 다 시간 뒤 싸움 때문에 다 대디 샤워지가 요거지가 집에 담아서 짠짠 지종나 다 설마 안 그리고 그래서 뒤 마치 다다 소소비치라 소 뒤초대스 요트 초대스 소도 샴양지 정치지 상다서 받는 원진이 뒤초 동바대 당지의 영정지는 아니 치카이날 땅에 들이 상로 요거지 땅에 원들이 야요다 말라 판토 용불에 선내 세문나는 직접 용고 말해 어떻게 너도 셔보다 처음에 딱 같이 시작한 맛이나 도도로 딱 lokal
well, as we read, the language itself is quite self-explanatory and is simple enough for us to understand, and also it's kind of very much straightforward. So therefore, it's almost we don't need to really explain anything other than just have a honest reflection on the teachings here. So yeah, let's just reinterpret or sort of take the advice and bring it into our own context, our own individual life. So here we all have our own version of the life, and so you called it. So you are in your lifetime or your life. So what is your life actually, right? When you think about this, so I asked this question that's reminded me about a great master from Lobdong Dakiki and Gongtang Rinpoche. So Rinpoche, a great eminent master called Gongtang Rinpoche, and that was he gave a similar lecture, which is very powerful to me. And what he says is that our life basically is like this: up until 20, and so we sort of just no much really have a purpose, and run around and keep doing all kinds of things. Has no a clear purpose, and so then from 20 to 40, and so we set up, we kind of get a sense of the purpose we wanted to, and we see the importance of in this particular context the Dharma practice, and then we keep and tell ourselves, yeah, I will do it later. I know it's important, it's great. Do it later, and so you kind of remind yourself and tell yourself, I will do it, and but then it's another 20 years gone, okay? And then that's what you reach the age 40, right? Then from 40 onwards, you say, oh, well, and I really haven't done anything, and I wasted my time from 20 to 40. I'm a loser, and didn't do it. What a pity. And then you kind of keep and say this until you reach the age of 60. Okay? Then when you look back, and what you really have done, you've done nothing, right? So therefore, and like the Gongtang Rinpoche's advice, we are the one has to aware of this and try not repeat this kind of very pity stories, life stories, right? And so until 20, you didn't do anything, and there's no really particular purpose, and a spiritual purpose especially. And from 20 to 40, you realize, but you didn't really put it and commit to the practice, and didn't put it a time and make effort. And then from 40 to 60, you just complain, and you are not the one who was able to do. And then that's how pretty soon your life is end up with empty. and nothing really accomplished. Yes, so when we think about this kind of teaching, and we must sort of awaken, right, and reflect upon this, and then bring to our own context, see, wow, so what I have done, right, and especially in terms of a virtuous action and the Dharma practice. So what I have done, you must ask your questions, right? And like the previous, we read it. So all over the life, and then overall, when you look back in your lifetime, really, you have to make a live, and you have to engage in the various things. And but the only time it seems to have, like the text says, only have about 5 years, really, time to dedicate yourself to the Dharma practice. So that is really very limited and very short period of time, and that's if we be able to really do. And the sad thing is, so even this 5 years, right? And is not that's when you think about the death and the part of the natural, right, phenomena of our life, and that death is inevitable. So that's 5 years, and then is also be challenged by the death. And so then, and when you look at this back and thinking, like in the Lamrim and the teachings of the great path, the treatises on the path of to the enlightenment by Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa, so he suggests or advised he highlighted the importance of the practice of fear, or scared, being scared or afraid of. And so what why he advised this, and being scared or afraid of, and is that it's not just reflecting on the death, then got scared. No, that's not his point. And reflecting upon the death, and think of its coming or its inevitability, is you got scared. That's not his teaching. And what he advised, he teaches is that when you look in upon the inevitability and the uncertainty of the death and uncertainty of the time, you know that you have you will need to, or you will have to repeat the same old miserable story of your life for yourself. That is, you have to. That means so death is there. It's not just the ending sort of the story, but rather it's a starting point of the new samsaric circle. That means you have to go through the rebirth, the process of rebirth, and go through the process of aging and the illness, and finally die again. So we're looking back from the starting point of the death, and look at this, the whole the samsaric the miseries. Then you need to got to be concerned about yourself, your future well-being, right? And worried about or scared of, and fear and about this repeated miseries of samsaric existence. That's what the point of you need to be afraid of, or scared about, or worried about, concerned. And so this fear or concern do not, and will give you and should brought you to the point there you would determined do not want to put yourself in such a miserable spot again, right? And then once you have this strong and realization that I do not want to repeat the same miseries I went through repeatedly, then you know you were searching for the way, the path to stopping, right, to cease this meaningless and pointless repetition of the misery. So then what you do, of course, in the context of Dharma practice, that's the way and the two, not repeating the samsaric misery is that you have to take the few steps, right? The first step is that to make sure and you will obtain or regain the precious human rebirth. Okay, and the way to achieve this goal is dedicate yourself to the 10 virtuous action. And then once you obtain the precious human rebirth, or born in a celestial realm, and then so by the means of dedication. Practice of 10 virtuous action, and then further the next step. You take a next step, that is to develop the renunciation, the mind of renunciation, and meaning that just by realizing that even though this precious human rebirth or being born in the celestial realm is preferable, is a great thing, however, it's still part of samsara and still as a subject to all kinds of miseries. So then from there, and determined to free yourself from the entire circle of cyclic existence, and the meaning that to seeking for the nirvana or the liberation. And and then from there, you take it a step further to advance your the practice of the bodhicitta and determined to attain the Buddhahood for the benefits of all sentient beings. So this is how once you reflect upon the death, the inevitability of the death and the uncertainty of the death. And get yourself to fully realize that there's a very damaging and harmful and the brutal reality, and then determined to free yourself from such a miserable experience. And so that's what really the reflecting upon the death, inevitability of death is something is not just scary yourself in general, but to turn it to a very meaningful spiritual path, a spiritual practice. And anyway, so our goal and our task here is that we have to repeatedly and remind ourselves the certainty of the death, right? Meaning you have to be mindful, remember, recollect, and being fully recollective, and remember this, and think of this, right, and meditate on this. It's like in the way we're doing this is like in Avatara, in Bodhisattva Avatara, and or the Bodhisattva's way of guidance to the Bodhisattva's way of life. Here, the Shanti says. And the time, when we think about time, actually, and the time is comprised of day and night, right? And the day and the night is can go with the hours, and then the minutes, right, and then seconds. So yes, so it looks like, feels like a day, and there is such a thing called a day and the night. In fact, it is the hour and the minute and the second. So we look at it from those components, right, and the building blocks of so-called day and night. Actually, there's no really time. The only reality we have is a second and by second, a moment by moment changing, and a constant flux of changing. And that's what our reality is. So this moment is sort of a diminution, and is a reality. And when you look at it from the Dharma practice point of view, the very sad reality is just keep fade away or goes away, diminishing, but it doesn't add anything, any second on the top of it, right? It's just dripping away and add nothing at all. There's no way to add anything there. So that's again, and here in Shantideva's teaching, so we have to know what he teaches is that lifespan is really and as there's no certainty at all, and the only thing certain is that it's just keeping and vanishing, and so when you look at the time frame and the reality of the time, and look at his reason, right, and you know that what he says indeed is true. And then further, like Shantideva going on and advise us. So pretty soon, and you will end up at the side of a dead bed, right? And dead bed. And when you are lying down on the dead bed, right, and you probably will be surrounded by all the beloved ones, right? Your families, friends, and people come and visit, right? But then, what happens? Even if they're surrounded, you've been surrounded by all the relatives, friends, your beloved ones, and most significant, sort of, all around you. But none of them can defeat or postpone the death, the process of the death, and or defeat the death itself. And so you are the one, the only one, has to go through this process of the death. So, and even you have a tremendous amount of money and wealth, at that point, is no of use, and even if you have the best medicine in the world, also will not save your life at that point, right? And it doesn't matter how famous you are, how powerful you are. So anything you have been appreciated and possessed in your life up until that point, facing and heading towards the last stage of your death and your life and the death, and literally nothing. Nobody can help, but only the doctrine, and only two things follows you, and one is a doctrine, meaning that the spiritual practice, the Dharma practice that you have dedicated and prior to the funnel and the last breath, of you being broken. So the Dharma practice that you cultivated and will be with you, and you can rely on that. That's the most reliable, dependable, and the reliable sources, and you can use it. Another is the karma, whatever the actions and you have committed you accumulated. Will be side by side with you. So in our case here is that by reflecting upon and understanding what Shantideva teaches us, advises here is that we must dedicate and put our times and energy and do the practice. So the practice, like for example, the practice loving kindness and compassion, wisdom. So repeatedly, right, and make effort and to get familiar with it and get used to it, and deepening and this very profound the path of the liberation. And so then when when you go into one day when you really reach this point of life, meaning death, right? And then you tell yourself, somehow you've been really very well prepared and you are you feel so how rich you are and how well and you will be end up and because of all these virtuous actions you have committed before and you reach this ending point of the life. So that's I think it's crucial for us to reflect upon and think it seriously. Oh yeah. Okay, now let's move to and our second point of the this chapter, and that is on page 30, the uncertainty of the time of death. Contemplation of the uncertainty of the time of death is also divided into three. Firstly, consider that the lifespan of the people of this world is uncertain, whereas the lifespan of the beings of the northern world is definite. In some other world, too, the lifespan is uncertain, but in most of them, it is definite. Yet, that of the beings of this southern world is extremely uncertain. Treasury of Knowledge says, ultimately, the lifespan of this world is uncertain, whether the average is 10 years or immeasurable. Special verses collected by topic says, of many people seen in the morning, some will not be seen in the afternoon. And of the many seen in the afternoon, some will not be seen in next morning. And since many men and women have died in the prime of life, what guarantee is there that this one will not die because he is young? Some died in the womb, some immediately they are born. Some died when they can crawl, and some when they have started to walk. Some die when they are old, some are young and in the prime of life. Everyone passes away by turn, like the dripping of ripened fruits. 될까?
다 남친님이 살아가고 남친님이 살았다 남친님이 살아서 소원에 지금 로간중이 잡으려 말을 따라마당 때 잡으려 말 때리 세고다 다 전직지 문안 됐어 뭐가 너무 너무 늘빠 맞죠 뭔도 입든 말은 제대로 저지네 일단 보면 비 저도 때까 따티온지 입든 요 말았으나 지당 맞지 못도 전 지당 맞지 못도 고 내가 살마송다 주 그거 말했어 근데 지금 그게 내가 살마송도 지는 연바지는 왜다데 그거 당에 살마송 왔다데 지치 말해서 이제 때리 요 말했어 딱 렘다 나선도 그랬어 나도 만나 근지죠 어떤 미 나빠르지 신 다다 시그지 니와요 말 나빠 말에 탕탕르지 다다 마시 니와요 말 나도 만나 근지죠 노르스라 이거든 로르비 세티 일등요 말 예때에 탐지 올때 차기나 덕게 됐던 마시위 자당문지 돈지 두바나 바나 시지 단데 데데에 탐지 올때 차기 니마치나 깨치나 쓴 남지 로 최종까지 요말 남나까지 요말 니마치 처왕이 있지 남층이 있지 남층이 있었다 어디 형성선다 처하고 우리 치도나다 탐지 월드 치즈나 가려 버즈다 탐지 장내 로고 탐지 장내 로고는 일단 다 마실 때 당게 던지지 내당 던지지 받다 자네 하마고 지니다다 안 월등히 단 자당 먼저 던지시다 나데 가오인데 지금 아주 년년이 디체트베 참피용 거지 레몬 보스 그파 먹었어 내가 가인지 마가와 좀 될라지니 그파 먹었어 통로 지랑 먹어줘 던지지다 그파 나바나 조시 당게 그파베 건져 먼저 시도 배사송네 단 요에 온 거다 어디서 볼 때 자당 아주 냠레로 가르치고 그러는 남친 님의 상명으로서 영상에서 남친이 얘기 말하는 님의 대자다 소수지 시오지 야처럼 삼아도 소소한 게 연결로 준비 상마다 샴지지네 샴비 스위크 농지네 착바동 지와지를 잡으려 요라 착바세야 돼 근데 니즈네 내가 팬도 그였잖아 나 콜라 니 콜라 고지였지 지와세 뒤점 말해 착바동 지와지 이마도 요리나 조원에 지와 정말 집에 맞다 볼 때와데 가르나 때 코드 나 대원도 봐도 코 대원도 그래 이 등에만도 봐도 코 등에만도 봐래 대장이 콜라 대원 진 뭐그래 등에 째냐고 말해서 상호도 뛰어야 한다래 롱 좀 쓰지 마지 저던 거는 삼바 동용 공원에 좀 쓰지 때 뛰어야 한다 대장 뛰어야 한다 이거네 소소원이 좀 뭐 쓰이지 냠디 좀 김정은 다지 낭미래 되지 영 코드 탐칠라 지와지네 샴지 곰데 컨트롤용데 차도지 따든지 요 말을 같이 성이 때는 차도지 시우지지 때라 차동지지의 성이 시송나 소수 디 차동지 레드 소속해도 그래 내가 정말 시나마저 파죠 라상교도 근데 다 되게 년전요 말 정말 잘하고 되는데 때도 상동네 상동용 정도 당하이나 당도 숨더라 때 표현 말때 자 남식이 말 그냥 콜라 공부를 정요 말 같이 시도나 하고 말 주시면 세워도 밑 세고 말다 그런 시도 그러더니 또 뭐에 있더라 미 같이 세고 말고 이마지가 시도 그랬지 선내 신의 뒤쪽 잡을 정도도 여러 맞죠 지금 말할 때 정말 신기해 소모지와 정말 신기해 되잖아 가도 정말 직발에 되자 시비기와 정말 직발에 시와 정말 직발에 따디 바로라 지금 마시 뒤쪽 통도 뒤 바로 지치라 생각 능력제니 소소 이렇게 젤마키와서 디바로라 셰동지 소소 디바조 세델라마키 세시마마키 때니서 표현 말해야지 때니 곰토이나 딱 캡성됐으라 처음부터 법이 캡성 남중님 법이 캡성 뜨느라고 그럴 때 삼노당 거지
Okay. So when you go down and looking, reflects on the what we have just read, and very deeply. And one thing that should kind of make you be really fully aware of. Realized is the uncertainty, the impermanence, right? The sense of not going to last forever, right? And because we have this sort of a tendency or a very diluted impression, and the things or events, and especially particularly our life, and is something that sort of remain the same. Particularly, the death, it seems as not something that's approaching and or related to your very existence. And which, of course, when you look at this, the verses that we just read, and should give you a clear the idea that it is true that there's no certainty, there's no guarantee, and there's nothing you can really rely on or and feel it has been secured. Your life has been secured from the being protected from death, and because it is no such a thing there. In fact, like in the Shantideva's text here, you not only have to on the very position where the death is approaching and you without ceasing. The second moment, sort of cease, pause for a second, and it's approaching you and constantly, very rapidly. So the sad thing is that in general, and when you deal with other events or things, a project, right, and work, and if you cannot finish on time, you can say, can you please give me a little bit more time? Can you wait for a little longer, right? And you can sort of make such a bargain, right? And put such a make such a request. And but very sadly, and the death, right, as one thing that you have to deal with, and must deal with, is that you cannot make such a request, and you can't bargain with it. It's just coming, and there's no chance, no hope for you to ask the death to postpone. The death is really kind of a fair too, right? The Lord of Death also kind of a fair death as a reality, right? It's because either you are sick, right, or you are a sick person, or you are a very healthy person. You are young, and you're not young, and you're wealth, or you're poor, whichever. And it's just regardless the status or the conditions you are, or your life experiences, and in a particular way, and the certainty, right? So uncertainty and of the death, the certainty of the death is just there. So it's, in other words, it just happens and without giving you any warning and or make you be aware of, right? Because it is coming from almost come from nowhere, but it's coming. And so we must understand this, the point where Shantideva is making, and utilize this very profound idea of the teaching advice into our own life. Why? Because if you not really fully realize this and appreciate the importance of this advice, you only will realize that when you reach the moment where you have to leave everything behind. Right? There's no chance for you to keep it anyway. Keep it no longer. You have no chance and no way for you to keep it any longer. So you will realize in that moment, but that is kind of very late, and you will feel very regret, right? And so you will think, and now the only thing is that, I was full, I wasn't really realized that I really didn't do what I understood. And so other than deep, regrets and the sorrows will strike on you, and then you have no other good memories, because that's what you have done. And instead, the really good lessons we need to take is, instead of fully realize this reality at the last moment where you have no chance but regret, and why not? Reflecting now, right, and facing and taking this advice, right, facing this the reality of the uncertainty of the death, and then take advantage of it. And so the simplest way to take advantage is by reflecting on this uncertainty of death and the certainty of the death, uncertainty of the time of the death, and the certainty of the arrival of the death. And then the simplest practice is that, now I must, use whatever the moment I have in my life to practice the loving kindness, compassion, right? And so to make other people bring happiness and joy into others, that's the practice of the kindness. And then try my very best to relieve or to free others and from the suffering and the cause of the suffering as much as I could. So this is a simple practice of, by reflecting upon or fully understand, or in other words, took advice as Shantideva is given to us. Clearly knowing that the certainty of arriving of the death and uncertainty of the time of the death, and really would motivate you, inspires you, and to dedicate in the loving kindness, the practice of loving kindness, compassion. Right? And when we talk about loving kindness, compassion, especially love, I'd like to again make this point clear. And I have repeatedly said in different occasions. So when you think about practice the love, and in this particular spiritual context, you must know that there's a subtle difference between love and attachment. Okay, love and attachment usually can be really misunderstood, or you will miss the crucial subtle point of the differentiations between love and attachment. Love is something that, like when you share this sense of love with the real love with your beloved ones, right? Your most significant or people around you, whoever you're going to express that love, is that basically, and you feel, others, the most important, the others' needs, right? And this is the primary motivation, the reason for you to express that sense of love, a sense of caring, sense of sharing, and sense of you are there for them. Okay, so motivate, focus on, right, and purely aimed to help out others, and let others be free from the cause of the suffering. And that is the love. Okay, that is the true love. Whereas, so you have so much affection, you feel so close to someone, right? And you want to help, and you want to be with him or her, them, or you want to do whatever and make them happy or pleased. But when you're looking deep down in your the intention, if that intention is start from the basic interest of yourself, right? Yourself say, oh, I will do this, and because and I will the one to get the benefits, and I do this because they are mine, okay, and they are someone is mine. So you see here, you started looking at yourself, right? You put yourself in the primary position, right, the most important spot, and then you sort of start there. You try to help others, and you do something for others, and you couldn't name it as a love, right? But indeed, it is attachment. Why? Because you are the one. The very motivation, very reason, and you want to do that is because and turn back, address your individual needs or interests, not merely focus on others' well-being. So we have to, from time to time, examine our attitude and make sure that our practice of love is not actually attachment itself, right? And so that's the subtlety. And also from here you can see that whether you practice love or the genuine love or and you've been driven by attachment is that your experience of jealousy, right? The levels of jealousy and your experiences of the jealousy also could to determine and whether it's a true love or it's the attachment, right? Although even though at the action level, the behavior itself seems similar, but if you experience the jealousy, right, then that's not the your action itself is not the love. This is not the genuine true love, but it's attachment. Whereas if you do whatever you do and you did, and but there's no really any sense of jealousy you experience as whether it's with family member or friends or to the stranger, whatever. So your action is merely just for the benefits of them, and you have no any desire for the positive outcome. And also, when the things turn to different directions, or anything that's it's not the common as you wish, and if you have no jealousy, right, and not being jealous about that person's well-being, and then that very action is attachment free. So this is genuine love. So we needed to meditate on this this point and again and again. One thing to make this meditation very successful, and meaning that the practice of loving kindness very successful is like we talked about earlier. So we have to think about the death, right? Because when you think about death yourself, and also the death of, let's say the death, the experience of jealousy of others, right? And from the perspective of death, you will realize that actually there's no reason for you to be jealous about it. Why? Because that person, it doesn't matter how jealous you are, right? He or she is moment by moment approach death. Death is going to destroy him or her, and he or she will be vanished, will be disappeared from your sight by the death. So therefore, in Shantideva's work and writing here, it says, you don't have to kill your enemy, because your enemy will be killed by the death, and the Lord of Death and himself. So therefore, look at this. This very reality, yes, will help us to cope with our sense of jealousy. At the same time, actually give us a strong motivation and a reason, and to be very compassionate and towards anyone, and we experience aversion, or we feel is not considered is not our favorite person. So, and at the same time, also when you look at the death, right, uncertainty of death and death of yourself, and you also know that attachment is really unjustifiable and unreasonable, and it's not a wise thing to do at all. Only the wise thing is that merely focus on the other's interest and do whatever you could. And yes, so this is how we should reflecting upon and meditate and all the time. And so this way we will see the great benefits, the beauty of this practice in this lifetime. Because once you truly understand the uncertainty of the time of death, right, the certainty of the death of itself, you will really find that how to utilize the appropriately and wisely, and utilize in the time and the resources and your life very purposefully, and meaningfully. So then you have no regrets in this lifetime when you heading towards the death path, and also when you reborn, your life and the next life will be will be very desirable one. And so that's the meditation I believe, and we need to repeatedly bring ourselves and back to the point and meditate over and again and again. Okay. So secondly, how many factors lead to death while the conditions for life are few? The Precious Garland says, living amidst the cause of death is like a lamp in the wind. The Friendly Letter says, as life is as susceptible to harm as a bubble buffeted by the wind, it is really amazing that we have the chance to breathe in and breathe out and awaken from sleep. The 400 verse says, individual elements are powerless, but assembled as known as a collection. Well-being is their balanced opposition. The Precious Garland says, many conditions are conducive to death. Few are supportive of life, and even they lead to death. Therefore, practice the doctrine always. So thirdly, consider the uncertainty of the time of death due to the extreme fragility of the body. The Friendly Letter says, life, if the earth, the Mount Meru, and the oceans, and embodied beings will be burned up in the bloods of 7 suns, so not even dust will remain. What need is there to speak of human fragility? Letter to King Kalika says, the Lord of Death is no one's friend, and his attack is certain. So, without putting it off until tomorrow, began to practice the holy doctrine now. It is not a good idea to put it off until another day. For the time will come when you no longer exist, and that could be tomorrow. 그러니까
치와진이 다른 것도 영어요 말할 때 배로 다 점천으로 마땅하다 노동시 그러나 난 치왕에 진짜 치왕 가능하다 치위견도 닦고 남친이 미김신시고 남친이 미김신가를 당고 단단 이와대 안에 지게만 보여요 치위견만 보여요 진짜 남치 님이 미김신식 정도다 근데 선바때 리냠총아리지 리냠총아 있었대 배나 러럽동 타와진 처로보다 리 냠총다 로잉이 바로 됐었다 근데 강진나 가로도 리세 지금 미세세 됐었대 종황아가 된다 종아지 차 냠마님 지금도 차 많이 봐요나 거기 차와 나와요 거 단다 가지고 내워서 그런 것도 진짜 종황아 저때 종아 차지 많이 오지 기능도 농민 종아때 의차 좋나 근데 시스템다 의차 되고는 저도 아니 리빈 종아때 봐 처럼 나서 또 너무 사 철라된 철농부 가면 농남과 남과남신도 되게 아니 지금 종아지를 비정하도 좀 맞지 냠도 또 어디 종아 사이 감트마 냠로서 지리 점오라지다 지 곰킨 룸타와 차노 종아 메기 돌트마 냠로서 베데 가창로 척 감트마 냠로서 아니 지 카곰니 도르 지 섬나 베 강로 츠콤 되고 아니 종아 메기 냠로서 아니 지 돌냠지 리가 자탐지 정모 차로다 드니다 롱 타마 오 롱도 롱 냠로 롱 차로 의차송라들이 롱 남실라테지 다 롱도가 남르시 사리비 차들라 마티미소 남시 남깔라테지 다디 카트텔라 땅아도 리럭파디 용스 조바 종왕아 리럭파디 용스 조바 디니 에네 남시 텔라 지다 나갈레차나 지 조와 카르만 나갈라 마세 테네 나다버 샤르스 더 타마타마티 동바 오스지니 동베 남기 동니 그톤데 삼동메나 디 카트텔라 동니 그 노아 샤르고스 동니 때 노아 샤송나 동니 때 동니 바디 카트 동니 때 메서 바이나 텔라 냠버정네 미조 지 몽고즈다다 그게 냠적지 내긴도 동송네 되게 리마로 드마마 카트디 니마몽볼라 트듬 데세데 띠텔라 동니 때 냠버정도 동니 때 냠버정 동니 때 메서 비고 띠 동바텔라 용텔라 양니 더수도 디그 니와테 그 남시트 리리 마포에서 리텔라 아니 주마마카와 리 똑 냠고요. 어때 남시 포용 수어니 남시 너네 보다 오늘 번이 무슨 지 도리 지나면 저 공라 포니 뭐 저는 때 포용을 써도 된가도 결정만이 다 파마니기 그딱그 옷들이 남시 뜻들이 포용 좀 그딱더니 파 여러 탭지니 차도 저당 미그런지 야 던지니 아군이 마토 틀리던 며칠언제다 그 오고니 마토고 뜻이용 통해서 이 저다 미주 어다 고치송을 하거나 타통을 수때리다 고 종차례 된다 남시 통송을 다 본것도 남서 놓고 많이 좀 하는 거 어떻게 그다 처럼 로즈네 되지 지금 어떻게 정하도 이게 차당도 되지 책이 요래 다 저와들 나도 배시 오지 타는 거요 말아 우들이 우체만 지직 바로니 요래 라 어때시고 또 모두 지에치래 성로 동사 곰격이나 곰통들 지를 때니 니와들라 다 가르쳐 보잖아 신내랍들 너세고 자탐만 자완남 좀 메이저 സമ자남 좀 메버지 동점 메버지로 대진 탐지 메버지스 만음냠스 용화지 오간다 그쪽가 대대점이 예대 니와 탐지 통문이스 레시 손신 되니라 자탐만디 대동도 시비 무슨 다나니 소다 니 치세고즈나 그때 말로 지 미치도나 깔이 깜짝이니 조포이즈니 tel라지 조지 자위도 깔이 깜짝 차당 그치니 뭐가 라사로 찾아오는 파 삼노지 땅에 로가지 송수din 자와세 참저 요마는 니찬이 종천 매와 차서는 먼저와 탐지 매와 차 수소론이 매와 차고 있어 어떻게나 로 야탐바 하로 정나티 바트게 진자시 저 다니세로 답변나 마치니 카트니 요라모요라 참마다다 치요 말 참만 다스 같이 세트도 크리스천 실제가 말 탐자니 다때나 삼로 땅의 지요라 디 카트기 좀장데 삼동서 다 멀음 나오지 멀음 냐스뇨 저 가정 공다 멀음 냐 나오지 데데 초라지 다남 선나가 탈문 데데 제르지 다 농니로 샤디오스 때마도 모카요 뇨강당 강조가 디 카트 자와강다 강조가 데다 탐지니 답이 있대 좀 선나가 초라한테 좀 제르세 다 대원죠 이게 가르종 초라도 맞고요. 예와탄지 매버지스. 니위 차 탐지 매송 요 말다 요 말. 됐지. 레시기 손지 되니라 자동 먼저 담한디 대동도 시위도 무슨 경험인데. 어따디 손비티 지나가 샤와칸지와 득자지요나 야가지요나 디 넘버만 받대 결혼냠 티워다시. 대동 무슨 드나니 스테다 소소고 냠디 거야다. 어떻게 거다. 또 샘나게나는 아주 지금 렘디가 남적대 결동 지미 선노가 소라지고 뜻지다 수수지동 연라 점핑 상로 쇼지 마중에 나라 수소랑일라 상로 동네 어떻게 있는 양 말 대응하다 누가 되지는 링한 바 상당 알아지 맞는 용 그랬어 어떤 점수도 당신 용 그랬어
Well, yes, so through the above verses, and it is very clear, and so author gave us many examples, metaphors, right? Through the metaphors and examples, and give the reason, right? Provide the reasons and use the different metaphors, examples, and to point out one crucial reality, that is the uncertainty of the death. Right? So uncertainty of the death and is the crucial point that we must fully realize, and then and to know that which is not a philosophical discourse, and that is not just mere sort of interesting at the point of the conversation, but it is something that's real. Okay, it's something that's absolutely relevant to your mere existence. Right, and then move on, and so you need to think about your actual status, right, in terms of the still to be in life. You know, to be in life, and is dependent upon, and there's so much the primary cause and the secondary conditions, right? This cause and the conditions is dependent upon. When looking at the causes and conditions which support you live, and then at the same time, if you examine the causes and the conditions which will bring you to the ending point of life, then you when you do this math, right? When you compare the notes of the conditions and the sources which you can rely on to be left, and the causes conditions which will cause you to die, and you will see and the number of the sources and the causes and conditions which could cause you or bring you to the last point of the life, the death, is actually much greater than the causes and conditions which would support you and to live or sustain your life, your livelihood. So this math, right? This math, and then the list you made, or the notes you compared, it's certain, right? It would give you a very clear understanding. Yes, so among the causes of death and the causes of life and conditions of the sustain and the sustainability of the life, and the conditions which it could bring the death and upon to you, you know, they are just uncomparable. And it's it is obviously that the harmful aspect of the conditions and the causes are much greater. And then you look at the very status of your own body, this precious human body, and then you see, and from its components, right? And from its the whatever is constitutes this very body, those elements itself are very, very vulnerable, and so it's very fragile. First of all, your body is the collections, right, of the four proto elements, meaning that fire, earth, wind, fire, and earth, fire, wind, and such earth, water, and fire, and wind. So those four elements are, and for instance, like the wind elements, right? When the wind elements had anything wrong with it, or become lost its the balance, and then that is actually the death itself, because death means that you cannot breathe in, right? Once you breathe the in and cannot come and breathe out, then that's death, right? Similarly, when you breathe out, if you cannot breathe back, and then that is death, right? That tells that the wind element and even though it's the important components to sustain your life, but itself is being such a vulnerable condition, and it could cause you death in any moment. And so then from here, when you think about how they're related to your death, right? The four elements and the process of your death is that when you began and the process of the death, first of all, the earth elements will diminish or will dissolve, right? Dissolve into water elements. And while you are under this, the causes of or the process of the dissolution of the earth into water, and so the first thing you will experience is that you can't, all the mobilization or abilities of movement will cease, right? Will stop in functioning. So that's the evidence and show that the earth element is now dissolving into the water element. And then the water elements will dissolve into the fire elements. As a result of this, the water elements dissolve into the fire elements, and the individual person who is experienced the dying and will experience the strong and that was suffered by like the experience of such as thirsty, right? And so. Because the water element is imbalanced or is lost its functionality, and consequently you will experience the various experience and miseries or difficult experiences. And one thing is like feel very thirsty. And then the fire elements, water elements with the fire elements, and the dissolution of fire elements into the space. A wind element will start. So at that point, and you will bodily feel cold, frozen, right? And so the reason you feel so cold and frozen is because the fire element now is began to dissolve into the wind element. And finally, the wind element will dissolve into the consciousness, right? At that moment, so they're completely dead, meaning that the inhalation and exhalation in the its gross level is completely stopped functioning, and then so your consciousness will dissolve into the space elements, right? And space elements, and your consciousness here, meaning it's the cognitive, it's a cognitive and it's a clarity and it's illuminating. So and then the space like this experience of will arise or will dawn. Actually, and from a tantric or Vajrayana point of view, when the deaf person who experiences this space like the great and total absolute and the free space like the experience, and then if the person and of the dying and have been practiced and the shunyata or the emptiness, right? And particularly the inherent phenomena is devoid of inherent existence. That's a very crucial point. And then if he or she done that in lifetime, and then when the consciousness dissolved into the space, and then for him or her, it's not a mere space or greater a sphere of some kind of total openness, but rather that is the great moment of the time of dawn of the nature of reality. And so the experienced and advanced practitioner could maintain on that state of emptiness, a state of a sphere of reality, and for a long time. And you may heard from time to time that story. There are a person and a meditator, Dharma practitioner, who died medically, proved to be dead for many days, but his or her body remains fresh, and there's no really any the odors and derived from that and the dead person. And in fact, his or her body and the facial expressions and there's what you call the complex is that the radiance and the facial on the body and the face is still remains fresh and remains as if that person is still alive. It could, this state of this person, when you experience this and see this kind of thing, and it tells that that person is not completely dead. That person is still meditating on the state. Be able to recognize this moment of the dawn of the actuality, the ultimate reality. Now he or she is maintain and meditate on that. So, and then yes, so this is the kind of process of the death, right? How the death occur and how death is step by step. And so when you look in also the sort of the places where the departure or the transmission and transferation of the consciousness taking place. And there are two things and also being explained in the Vajrayana literature. And essentially, we know that our life and or the basis of our life is in the subtle level is depend upon the sperm and of the father that we received the father, right, and the egg that we received from the mother. So in the very subtle level, when this union of the sperm and the egg is destroyed, and if it's broken, start with the sperm, and because it's water in nature, liquid in nature, so the consciousness will depart from downwards, and whereas if this union of sperm and egg start with taking place with the egg, and then the consciousness will depart from up. So yes, that's what in the literature you will see this how they describe this process of death. And in fact, we talk about death and death. What is really death? Death is when your breath and we call it cheba is broken. So the brokenness of the breath, that is the death. So then. Yes, so that's all the death or the death-related realities are and the teachings are. So how to really bring this to our actual Dharma practice is that we have to. So when you see this, right, and I understand all this, and then begin, and you will feel that so-called
Finish time.